Hey everybody, I'm Jetpack. I'm 50% of this channel and I am obsessed with Nancy Drew. Hi Jetpack. I was scrolling TikTok for hours on end like I always do, and I kept seeing your zodiac sign as blank. So your zodiac sign as a Starbucks order, a room, and I kept thinking like, what if we applied this to Nancy Drew? So this is my attempt at that. I am by no means an expert in the zodiac, but I do love me some Nancy, so I'm gonna give it a shot. I did a little bit of research. This is not the end-all be-all opinion. If you have a different opinion, I would love to hear it in the comments. Please let me know. This would be such a fun thing to discuss with fellow Nancy lovers. So I'm just gonna go through all the zodiac signs and give you my opinion on which sign I think relates to which game. First up, we have Aries. Aries is a very fiery sign, very ambitious, but also very hard-headed. So for this one, I gave Aries the final scene. In the final scene, Nancy acts a lot different than many other games. She's very headstrong. She's very determined to find Maya, and nobody else is helping her. She's the driving catalyst for this case. She's fiery, she's tenacious. Aries are often seen as the catalyst that get things going, and that holds really true in this game too. The police aren't doing anything. The other characters in the game aren't doing anything. They're all very dismissive of Nancy and her knowing that something is not right here. Nancy's dialogue is pretty different in this game than a lot of other games too. She says things like, "Answer the question, charm strong," which lends itself to the idea that Aries can be very stubborn and very abrupt with people. Whether or not Brady Armstrong deserved it is another discussion entirely, but that's why Aries reminds me of the final scene. Next we have Taurus, and Taurus is a very grounded sign. Tauruses are known to be consistent and solid, and it reminds me a lot of Secret of the Shadow Ranch. Secret of the Shadow Ranch is a well-rounded and very much loved by the masses type of Nancy Drew game. That's kind of the vibe that Taurus gives off too. They're solid, they're well-rounded, they're loved by many. Shadow Ranch is a comfort game for a lot of people. It's nostalgic, it's steady, it's got solid puzzles and a great atmosphere. It's very much a lifting game. Taurus is an earth sign, which reminds me of the ranch in the aspect of living off the land. We have the eggs and the vegetable garden. Also speaking to being an earth sign is the sheer vastness of the map size in this game. We have the ranch, Mariazi's shop, and the trail stop. We have where the rock carvings are. There's a lot of locations in this game, and that reminds me of Earth. Nancy travels a lot in this game and covers a lot of Earth. Taurus is also the sign of the bull, which reminds me of a ranch too. Now Tauruses can also be seen as kind of basic, which lends itself to a lot of people saying Shadow Ranch is overrated, but the dependableness and the steadiness of it is what keeps people really in love with it. Up next, we have Gemini. So Gemini is the sign of the twins, so fittingly enough, it gets Waverly Academy. Okay, so that's not the only reason it gets Waverly. Gemini is known to be very volatile and to be a sign of change. Gemini is the transition from spring into summer. Now this reminds me of Waverly Academy because while the girls have always been competitive, there's something different this time around. Things are starting to get dangerous and could potentially get deadly, which lends itself to the volatileness of Gemini. Geminis are also known to be very flexible and adaptable, which meshes well with Nancy having to go undercover. Gemini is also a very youthful sign, which is Nancy going undercover as a younger girl at the boarding school. For Cancers, I gave them Silent Spy because emotions. Cancers are known to be very emotional people. And in this game, Nancy is dealing with a lot of things regarding her mother and her past and her identity. Not only is Nancy searching for answers about her mom, she's also having very serious emotional conversations with Ned and Zaddy Carson Drew. Cancers are ruled by the moon, which is a very motherly archetype. Again, this speaks to Nancy and her relationship with her mother as a constant theme in this game. Cancers are known to be adaptable, but at the same time, they're very much planning people. Nancy was ready to pick up and go to Scotland once she got the creepy phone call and the letter, but she had to be very calculating when she got there, like a spy. Cancers are known to be very go-with-the-flow people, but at the same time, they want to think things through before they make decisions. Throughout the game, Carson continually tells Nancy, "Come home safe." This is very different than the other games in the Nancy Drew series because Carson usually just sends Nancy on her way. Cancers care a lot about the people in their lives, and this reminds me a lot of Carson in Silent Spy. Next up, we have my sign, Leo. For Leo, I gave us Labyrinth of Lies. So if you know Leo, you probably know we love attention and we love being the focus. So the whole acting and being on a stage really vibes well with the Leo. Leo is also the sign of the sun, which is the center of the universe. Again, acting, being on stage, being the main focus. Also in Labyrinth of Lies, everybody's the culprit. Everybody's the star. Everybody is exuding Leo energy. So Leos being so self-centric can cause them to be very focused on there only being one way, and that's their way. They can easily overlook solutions to their problems that could be a lot easier on them, just because it's not the way they want to do things. So this speaks volumes to the motivation behind the culprits in Labyrinth of Lies. Looking back, we can probably think of a dozen solutions to each of their problems that would have been a lot easier than planning a whole art heist in a production and everything that they did. While Leos do get a bad rap for being so self-centered, we also show people that they can do these things too. Leos tend to be leaders and help give other people confidence. This reminds me of Niobe getting her confidence back after being knocked down so low by the event that she did. For Virgo, I gave you all the Deadly Device. Virgos are very analytic, which reminds me a lot of the science aspect in Deadly Device. Virgos are perfectionists, which you have to be with a lot of the experience going on in the Tesla-inspired laboratory. Virgos are also very transitional, which reminds me of the fact that Deirdre is transitioning to a new role in the series with this game. Previously, we've seen Deirdre as an enemy. Deirdre has been actively fighting against Nancy, and in this game, it's the first instance we see where Deirdre helps us out. This signals Deirdre's new role in the future game. In Midnight in Salem, we work directly with her nearly the entire game. Virgos are also very grounded, or a callback sign, which reminds me of the fact that Deadly Device is the second Nancy Drew game with a murder-themed case. This is a callback to the first ever Nancy Drew game, Secrets Can Kill. Virgos can tend to get lost in the detail, which is what the culprit is hoping Nancy does in The Deadly Device. The culprit is hoping that Nancy gets so overwhelmed with the details that she just says the suspect who the culprit wants to go down for this crime. And lastly, Virgos can be very self-critical, which reminds me of the fact that Nancy only has this case because Deirdre is so self-critical of herself. Deirdre told the culprit that Nancy was no good because that's what Deirdre wants to believe. Nancy wouldn't be there without that self-criticalness. Deirdre has been led to believe that she's not good enough by her family, by her friends, by everyone, because they're comparing her to Nancy Drew. Deirdre is self-critical, and she's taking it out on Nancy, and this case wouldn't exist if it weren't for that fact. So Libras are special. You guys get 2 games. Libra is the sign of the scales, and that reminds me of the balance of power and the need for justice in Alibi and Ashes and in Midnight in Salem. Libra is the sign of social justice and exposing social dynamics. Before Alibi and Ashes, we saw Nancy as this untouchable, infallible hero that is beloved by everybody in her hometown, worldwide, everywhere. In Alibi and Ashes, we see that's not the case. Almost everybody we talk to has something negative to say about Nancy. They think she's too snoopy, they think she's ruining their plans, etc. They're exposing the social dynamics that's going on in River Heights and changing how we might see Nancy for future games. And then in Midnight in Salem, the whole town is going through a social justice era. They're bringing up these old injustices that are very much still going on today, and it's affecting the modern day social relationships between people. With Libra being the scale sign, it reminds me of the fact that the scales are imbalanced. In Alibi and Ashes, Nancy's unjustly arrested, and we have to remedy that. We have to rebalance the scales. And then in Midnight in Salem, Lauren is deprived of her childhood home, and again, Nancy has to rebalance those scales. Scorpios, I gave the Haunted Carousel. Scorpios represent strength and emotional determination. Nancy needs these attributes to help Joy through her past family traumas. Scorpios can also be very interested in macabre elements, which reminds me a lot of the Haunted Carousel's sordid past and present. We have the past with Rolf Kessler and his wife issues, the stolen jewels being stored in the park, and then the most recent theft. Also, we have Joy situation. Scorpios can be very much in tune with their emotions, which vibes with Joy just spilling her guts about her past to Nancy. Scorpios tend to be thrill seekers, which reminds me a lot of the amusement park in this game. Scorpios have the desire to figure out why things tick, which reminds me of how Nancy is not just satisfied with, oh, the wiring's screwy, and that's why the haunted carousel is going around at night by itself. She needs to find out the real reason. I gave the Sagittarius sign Sea of Darkness. So Sagittarius is a water sign, which vibes very well with the whole snow, ice, and nautical themes in this game. Sagittarius also relates to growth and abundance, which reminds me of Nancy ditching Ned to grow her own personal needs. Whether or not that was the right thing to do, that's what was done. Nancy took this case because she felt she needed to for her personal growth. Water signs are very flexible and adaptable. Again, Nancy just picks up and leaves and goes to this mystery, even if she already has plans. Sagittarius sign itself is half mythical creature, half human. So the Sagittarius sign reminds me of the storybook epic, which is very similar to the whole story behind the treasure. Sagittarius like to explore, which lends itself to the idea that Nancy's in a new country, and she's very much exploring very dangerous locations like the ice caves, the lighthouse, and just riding in the middle of the ocean in a small dinghy. I gave Capricorn's Treasure in the Royal Tower because they're very determined, grounded, hardworking people. This reminds me of the fact that Marie Antoinette was very grounded despite all the lies that were posted about her in history books. But it also reminds me of Professor Hotchkiss because she's very determined, despite her critics, to bring to light the truth about Marie. There's elements of earth in this one because of the red dirt in the secret passageways, the garden outside despite it being completely winter, and the amount of land that the tower itself traveled being moved from France to Wisconsin. Capricorn set their goals very high, which is something that Dexter did as a kid by his goal being to get into the Queen's Tower. Professor Hotchkiss is doing with her whole goal with Marie, and Nancy's doing with setting her sights on solving a centuries-old mystery. Capricorns are masters of discipline, which is why we see Professor Hotchkiss tirelessly typing away in her room, and once she gets her hands on Marie's journal, she whips it out into an English translation in no time. Capricorns are self-sufficient, which reminds me of the fact that Nancy has to do everything for herself when she's on vacation in this hotel. She has to fix the elevator, she has to get dinner orders, she has to deliver boots. This is very much a do-it-yourself attitude of a Capricorn. I gave Aquarians Danger by Design. Aquarians are described as the fixed air sign, which seems a little contradictory, but it just means they're very creative, flexible, adaptable. At the same time, they're steady and fixed with their decisions. We see this in Danger by Design because it's a very creative game. It's fashion-based, it's art-based. Nancy has to paint paintings in the park for money, but at the same time, the dialogue in this game can be very unique. Nancy gets sassy with her boss, Manette, which we don't see in many other games. Specifically thinking of the cockroach scene, where Nancy talks back to Manette. Aquarians are known for thinking outside the box, which reminds me of the ending in Danger by Design, because we don't even know the culprits until they're revealed. So Nancy very much has to think outside the box to solve it. I'm giving Pisces my favorite game, Curse of Blackmore Manor. Pisces is a transitional sign. It's the transition from winter to spring, the personification of the melting of snow and everything starting anew. That reminds me of Curse of Blackmore Manor because of all the changes that Linda is going through. Things are heating up and melting. She's having a meltdown. She's had so many major changes. She's gotten married. She's a stepmother now. She's living in a new country, in a new home. Like Paliki Vada says, she's very susceptible to suggestions. Pisces can be compassionate, but they're also known as very needy. The compassionate portion of Curse of Blackmore Manor is Nancy coming to England and she's trying to help Linda with this emotional stuff she's going through. It's also signaled that Linda is trying to be a good stepmother. When we go towards the needy portion is that Linda needs a lot of emotional support. That's okay, because she's not particularly getting it from her husband who's gone, and it's not Jane's responsibility to give that to Linda either. Mrs. Drake is cold and distant, even though it does seem she tries sometimes, so Nancy is very much needed as the compassionate figure in this game to Linda. Again, with Pisces being a sign of change, it reminds me of the fact that this is the first case that Nancy takes abroad. It's a brand new setting for her. Pisces is the sign of the fish swimming in opposite direction, which we can interpret as the idea that there can be multiple truths based on one person's point of view. This reminds me of the idea that from Linda's point of view, there is one absolute truth. She is becoming a werewolf. But then we look from Nancy's point of view, she knows that's impossible and that's not what's really going on. Alright, that'll do it. That's my opinion on the zodiac signs as Nancy Drew games. I hope you liked this video. It was a lot of fun for me to think about. Check out our other videos. We go live on Twitch twice a week. We're very active on Instagram, so I'll see you around. Bye!